Hello and welcome back to El Podo. We made it, Jornada 38. It is the end of the season. I'm your host, Nick Bell, and I'm delighted to be joined by my friend Tom Morgan Charters to not just talk about what happened in this game week, but to talk about what happened this season and looking ahead to going into the playoffs very, very shortly too. But Tom, how are you doing first and foremost? You all right?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. In England, it's a bank holiday Monday, which I'm sure you've had off, but unfortunately, my job, bank holidays don't count. So I've just come back straight from work.
The way that you keep those trains running, Tom, that's the main thing. Us mere mortals wouldn't be able to get about on a bank holiday if it wasn't for the likes of yourself. But so I salute you for your service. But you're here to talk about some Primera Federación football. You're sporting a beautiful, and if you're not watching this on YouTube and you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or on the Spanish Segunda Patreon, he's got a fantastic Zamora away shirt on, Tom. This is a unique piece for you, isn't it?
Yeah, I say I didn't manage to get any of the shirts when me and Liam went over to watch Zamora, as the club shop is in the town and it wasn't open on a Sunday. So I've had to sort of try and get Liam to look through his contacts to see who can get me some. And yeah, it's paid off, and this is not the only one that I've got.
I imagine that's why you're probably having to work on a bank holiday Monday, maybe. I'm just speculating, but
I have no choice in the matter.
exactly. But yeah, there's been plenty of stuff going around this weekend, to be fair. We'll get to results shortly and we'll get to a little preview of the playoff picture as we know it going forward. However, just some news, and I suppose the biggest news article from this weekend, Tom, is this weird controversy around this mini league which formed at the very edge of the Grupo Uno playoff picture. So to set you a bit of a scene before we get into everything, Pontevedra have basically been in the playoffs for, essentially the second half of the season, haven't they? They are playing on it was Saturday, wasn't it? Saturday or Sunday? Can't remember which one.
Yeah, we played at the same time against Real Villas.
Yes, it was. Yeah. So it's Vilas at home at El Patron, and they are 2-0 down going into the 90th minute. They pull one back in the 95th, and then Alex Compa, who's had a fantastic season, scores in the 15th minute of added time. Now, what we think at this moment, and what everyone else seems to think, including Pontevedra, is that is enough. They've made the playoffs. They finished fifth, and a fantastic season under Ruben Dominguez is going to be rewarded with an extra few games and a shot at getting into the Spanish Segunda. That's not what has transpired, has it, Tom?
No, so it turns out that we thought we had a three-way mini league in all sorts, really, between Castilla, Pontevedra, and Baracaldo. With the final day, the results, we thought that Castilla finished on 7 points, Pontevedra finished on 7 points, and Baracaldo finishing on 7 points in their head-to-heads in that mini league, which unfortunately knocked them out the running. And Castilla had the head-to-head over Pontevedra, which is very disappointing to see. But if it was in, say, in La Liga, it'd be a totally different situation, wouldn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So I know we've explained mini leagues a couple of times on this podcast because it is quite unique to Spanish football, but it doesn't necessarily go down to goal difference straight away. It goes down to the head-to-head, and when you have three teams who have all finished the same, it usually goes to those three teams. However, in this case, Primera have had to go back and check their own rules because even they didn't know. And essentially, it went down to the head-to-head between Castilla and Pontevedra, like you said, Tom, and Real Madrid Castilla came out on top of that with I think it was a win earlier in the season as well. Now, it took them a while to confirm that, and we had this weird situation where Pontevedra confirmed that they were in the playoffs. We even had Real Madrid Castilla, with a sort of like a commiserate tweet saying, "Oh, good season, but we didn't just make it." And it wasn't until about 9:30, 10 o'clock at night that Primera actually confirmed that Castilla would be included. Now, that's obviously set the cat amongst the pigeons. Pontevedra claiming that that shouldn't actually be right, that there's no sporting merit here, and that the Baracaldo results should be included within that mini league, not just a straight head-to-head between those two sides. there's no update from this, unfortunately, at the moment. We're still waiting for a response. We're supposed to get one back by 6 o'clock tomorrow, but ultimately, at the minute, Castilla are preparing for a Friday night game against Sabadell. It's a bit of a mess, isn't it?
Yeah, I just couldn't believe it took the league so long after the games are finished to see what actually is the rules. And like we said, if it was, say, La Liga, we'd have different teams in those playoffs places. And I really do feel sorry for, especially like for Pontevedra and Baracaldo, who've had very impressive seasons. They've missed out to a Filial team, which we don't want to see.
No, we really don't. I agree with you there. I have real sort of commiserations for Pontevedra if they don't get through, but also Baracaldo as well, because I think they're both more deserving of a shot at going into the Spanish Second than both, the Filial sides. And we've got four of them, Tom, which I'm sure we'll come on to talk about very, very shortly. Elsewhere, we've had a couple of confirmations of managers who won't be continuing with us next season, and we're sure this list is going to get bigger as the weeks go by. But first of all, Mario Simon, he's not going to be at Unionistas next season. He signed off there. A bit of a, I don't want to say strange decision, because I think it was sort of bound to happen. Essentially, Simon has come into the Salamanca side, really turned them around, and essentially got them to within, touching distance of the playoffs this season when they looked dead and buried at one point. Are we surprised to see that he might be moving on? Is he going to be looking for a gig a bit closer to home, so he is a native to the Murcia region? Or do you think he's maybe thinking, I've got a good shot at getting maybe a higher profile job, so to speak?
Yeah, I think me and you are thinking the exact same thing, really. He came in sort of middle of September when they were rock bottom and looked like they was going to have a very painful season. And the points tally that they managed to accumulate since he'd taken over, I think there's only about 4 teams that have sort of got the sort of same amount of points or more. So it's been a really good progression for Unionistas, who are a fan-owned club, which I can sort of appeal to because I'm an Exeter City fan, who are also a fan-owned club. And yeah, I think he is looking for sort of a bigger profile club and also sort of a bigger pay packet as well.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting where he may end up, because we do get this sort of managerial merry-go-round, don't we? Where, even some managers who have done well at this level this season may even hang on until, as he did this year, till September, October time, and maybe wait for a job in the Spanish Segunda potentially. So we'll certainly keep an eye on where Mario Simon is going. I've got a theory in my brain, but I won't say it out loud just yet. I'll reserve it. And when I text you, Tom, and say where he's going to go, we can do a bit of a Nick knows. It'd probably be completely wrong, but we'll wait and see. One manager that we do know is coming back into Primera RF next season, and we've had the fax machine hot off the press for this one, is Sergio Guillo, who was once of the parish of AD Merida a couple of seasons ago. He moved to Huesca at the beginning of last season, but ultimately that's not worked out for him there. He's back in Primera RF, and he's going to go to Real Murcia, Tom, which is a bit of a surprise, really, because obviously Cuco Torres has done quite an okay job there. He's not set the world alight, but ultimately he's done the job that he was sent in to do, and that is keep them in the league. He's not going to continue next season, and it is Sergio Guillo who's going to come in and try and get Real Murcia sort of back up towards the top end of the table.
Well, I think he's coming in trying to sort of rebuild his reputation after a very short stint at Huesca this season. Didn't really impress with them at all. But I'm pretty sure they've bought him because of his experience with Merida the previous season, just only narrowly missing on the playoffs. And also, he's actually a former player of Real Murcia as well, which I don't know whether that comes into it or not. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, it's always good to. And I think there is going to be some restructuring around Real Murcia. I think there are obviously whispers of there's going to be a role for Pedro Leon in some capacity as well. And I think what Real Murcia want to do this time, and as much as Guillo's Reputation was probably dented by his time at Huesca, but Huesca have ultimately been relegated anyway, so I don't think anyone was going to be saving them. It is a matter for him that there was going to be a few clubs sort of bidding for his services, and I think as soon as a club the size of Real Murcia comes in, and let's not forget the potential that that club has, that's a great gig for anybody. So I'm sure Sergio Guillo was, licking his lips at the prospect of standing on the touchline in the UEFA Condomina next season as well. So again, we'll keep an eye out on him there. I just mentioned, Tom, that we have had confirmed some clubs dropping down from the Spanish Segunda as well. So we can say the three that are going to drop down are going to be Huesca, as we've mentioned, the Aragonese side, dropping into the third tier for the first time in a very long time. We've also got Cultural Leonesa dropping down after one season of Spanish Segunda. It'll be good to see the side from Leon back in Primera F. But this one is the big fish here, isn't it? It is possibly one of the biggest clubs that's ever dropped down to the third tier, sort of on a par with the likes of Malaga, Deportivo de la Coruña, Oviedo, Tenerife, Real Zaragoza, who haven't played outside the top 2 years for I think about 77 years, had it confirmed that they'll be playing in Primera Ref next season. That's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, they've sort of been teetering on the edge for the past few seasons and narrowly escaping relegation, but it's come to bite them back really. And yeah, I was sort of hoping that I was going to do the show with Liam because I was going to wear a Real Zaragoza shirt, just but I'm happy with you anyway. But yeah, it's a big fish in a small pond, and I wonder if we're going to get the bounce back like Tenerife have just done this season, or they're going to have like a few seasons like Depor, really.
It's going to be a tricky one for them because there's clearly something fundamentally wrong with Real Zaragoza at the moment. It's not. I can't really put my finger on it because you would look at what Jorge Mas, who is the Mexican owner of not just Real Zaragoza but also Inter Miami. You look at the success that Inter Miami are having, you would think surely there's a copy and paste kind of exercise going on here, but it feels like there's just a little bit of neglect going on in Zaragoza at the moment, and ultimately it's played out to the fact that this club that only 20 years ago were winning Copa del Rey, they were playing in the UEFA Cup, they beat Arsenal in the Cup Winners' Cup as well with that absolutely brilliant. I think it was like from halfway, wasn't it? Goal in the final minutes at Lob Seaman, and yeah, it's going to be strange because in one way we had this conversation about Tenerife last year. We went, oh well, they're going to struggle. They struggled this season. They've been crap this season. We don't know how they fix it off the pitch. So how are they going to do it on the pitch? And lo and behold, they proved us massively wrong and went and bought all these brilliant players. Have obviously stormed Grupo Uno. I'm getting the sense that Real Zaragoza might do something similar. We've obviously seen them recruit quite well already. So, Juan Hardy is going to be he's already signed up for next season alongside a couple of other people. They're also talking about maybe Fuoli from Sabadell, in case Sabadell don't get promoted. So it's going to be really interesting. And I know obviously it's sad for Liam that, he's not going to be talking about them in the Spanish Segunda, but at least he gets to talk about them on El Pozo next season. But it is a really, really surprising and big club to drop down to this level. So yeah, we'll keep an eye on those, how they get on through the summer. How about teams coming up from Segunda F, Tom? Because we've got a couple of finals going on in the playoffs, haven't we? I don't know if you've got the screen open in front of you. I don't know if you want to read us through some of those results.
Yeah, so in the first legs, Aguilas 0, Poblense 0, Ude Orense 1, Ube Conquense 0, Raul Jaén 2, Atletico Baleares 1, Sede Correa 3, Real Oviedo Vetusta 0, which we love, and Ude Logroñez 1, Ude Sanse 0.
Yeah, I think what really is telling there is that we've only got that one filial sort of like in the mix, and we saw so many filials go down this weekend. It was absolutely brilliant. And Sede Correa as well. I don't know too much about them, to be honest. I won't claim to be sort of like an oracle on this, but they are an Extremaduran club. So already my excitement is growing about this because we've already got, CD Extremadura, we've got AD Merida, we've got CP Cacereño, which have also stayed in the division. If we can add a fourth Extremaduran team, we've got a real good football weekender away there in the basically football's forgotten frontier in Spain. But even more impressively, this would be one of the smallest clubs to ever get promoted to the third tier if they can just keep this result, because they're from a town of only 12,000, Tom, which is just incredible, isn't it? Are there any other results in there that you're quite happy to see? I'm really happy to see Real Jaén leading Atletico Baleares as well after that 2-1 win.
Yeah, going from yourself and a friend of the pod, Matt Harrison, who's been to Real Jaén, is one of the places I want to go. But also, I think Poblense and also Atletico Baleares are both teams from the island of Mallorca, which could be a possible another weekend if both those two manage to get results in the next legs.
Yeah, that'd be quite good as well. I suppose we can only have one of them each. I'm also interested in Ude Orense. Imagine if we lose Orense CF this season, who have obviously been relegated, but then we get another Orense, and there's a very fascinating story there, which we won't get into now. But again, that'd be quite a story there. So, shall we go into just a quick roundup then, Tom, before we get into sort of like chatting and previewing the playoff picture? I'll take Grupo Uno if that's okay, and then if you could take us through Grupo Dos, we'll wrap this off quite quickly. So, as I've just mentioned, Ourense CF went down swinging this weekend as they picked up 3 points with a 2-1 win over Tenerife, but unfortunately it wasn't enough to save them as they do drop down to Segunda Ref. Baracaldo will rue not maybe getting a home win against Celta Fortuna this weekend, as that 1-1 draw sees Inama de la Soto's side miss out by the finest of margins here, Tom, like say, finest of margins, goal difference. Arenas Club rounded off a really solid season with a 1-0 win against Zamora at Fedora. Cacereño lost at home to an already relegated Talavera, but will remain as a part of that growing contingent of Extremaduran clubs. Lugo and Arenteiro played out a 0-0 draw, our last Galician derby of the season, whilst Mario Simon signed off his time with a brilliant 3-2 win against Racing Ferrol. Ponferradina's 1-0 home win against Bilbao Athletic at El Torrelin was enough to grab themselves a playoff spot to give them another shot at the return of the Spanish Segunda. And as we've mentioned, Pontevedra came from 2-0 down in added time to rescue a point against Real Aviles Industrial at El Patron, which may or may not be enough to get them a shot at promotion yet. TBC on that one. Merida picked up a 2-1 win away at Osasuna Promesas, and Real Madrid Castilla scraped a draw at Guadalajara, who were already down from last weekend. So, just to confirm, in that playoff picture at the end of the season, we've got Tenerife, who are champions. We've got Celta Fortuna, Zamora, Ponferradina, and at the minute, Real Madrid Castilla as our playoff contenders. And then in the relegation zone, we've lost Arenteiro, Osasuna Promesas, Ourense, Talavera, and Guadalajara. It's been a crazy season in Grupo Uno, hasn't it, Tom? I think it's definitely been one of the more tightest leagues we've had. There's some of these teams that were in the relegation zone, which only a few months ago were in the playoff picture. It's been a bit of a mental one, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's been mental all the way through season. I had a very dramatic last day of the season as well in Grupo Uno. It is a shame to say goodbye to the likes of Arenteiro, Talavera, Ourense, and our favourites Guadalajara, who really did end the season, end this match day quite well, really, with 2 spectacular goals from Unai Alvarez. If you haven't seen, go and check them out. It's just disappointing. Like, the league isn't sure on what is happening with the playoffs, really, regarding to their rules. But hey, it's Spanish football.
Yeah, and it's definitely sad to see, like you've just mentioned, Guadalajara, we've had a great time following them this season, and, they've been very hospitable to us whenever we've gone for a visit there too, and it is a shame, obviously, that this trapdoor in both Grupos extends to 5 signs. This is why, obviously, we call it El Pozo, the well. It's so difficult to get up into, but it's also very easy to slide down. And like I say, 5 relegation spots in any other league would be absolutely madness. So, yeah, but I'm sure we'll keep an eye on them for next season amongst the other guys as well. Do you want to round us up with the Grupo 2, Tom, if that would be okay?
Yeah, so on Friday evening, we saw Marbella end their absolute disastrous season on a high with a 3-1 win over Teruel, who have had a terrific first season in Primera RFEF, despite being the lowest scorers in the league, scoring only 27 goals, but also conceded the 3rd lowest goals, which shows they've been a difficult team to face. And we're glad to have them with us next season. And a message for you, Teddy: enjoy your summer break. And then on Saturday, we sort of had a similar situation where we still had a couple of playoff spots to be decided, and who were the final 2 teams to be relegated into Segunda RF. So we'll start off with Villarreal B, the Yellow Midget Submarine. Not being offensive, I've checked this up. It's a small version of a submarine. They only needed a point to secure their spot in the playoffs, and they did that with a 1-1 draw at home to Atletico San Luciano, which saw the keepers saving a penalty each and a horrendous high foot on the San Luciano keeper, which saw Albert Garcia, who saw a red. So whether he'll be playing in the playoffs is another matter.
No, I agree. Yeah, I think that'd be interesting. But this is where we're going to see the interesting part of the B teams is who's going to drop into the B teams now that the season in La Liga is over, and there are a couple that sort of like float between both, don't they? So there's going to be a strengthening of all 4 of those B teams, aren't there?
Mm. And then we also had another confirmation of Europa participating in the last playoff spot after winning 3-2 against Ibiza. 2 goals from a man who I'm sure you all have on your El Pozo bingo cards, Jordi Cano. It wasn't the greatest performance from the home side, but I'm sure they don't care, and they got the vital 3 points, which meant that Cartagena couldn't catch them up, who failed to hold up their end of the bargain, as they could only manage a draw against Betis Deportivo, which were saying adios to the Los Verde Blancos filial side.
Yes, thank God for that. Though to be fair to him, and we'll not often do much praise, Tom, will we, for filial side, but the fact that they were pretty much dead and buried after that Javi Medina reign at the beginning of the season, the fact that they took it down to the last game of the season is testament to them. But I think, was it a 94th minute Cartagena equaliser that basically has felled them to Segunda RF?
Yeah, but I don't think they would have. I can't remember whether they would have made it even if they did win or not, depending on the head-to-head with Nastic and Torremolinos.
Yeah, good point, actually, yeah.
Which we go to with Nastic and Torremolinos failing to win their final games with a 1-1 draw for El Doctor's side away at Hercules. I'm sure we don't want a repeat of this season. Mm-hmm. And Carlos Alos's men were beaten comfortably away to Antequera 3-1, who I'm really looking forward to see if they build on this season with some brilliant players like Luismi, Destiny, Mohab Basele, and Daniel Cova. Mm-hmm. But luckily for these 2 sides, with Betis Deportivo not winning, we saw the other relegation place filled by one of Liam's favourites, Tarazona, who were unable to cause an upset at home against Sabadell, as they came 2-0 winners with a Lopez Pinto double. And then on Sunday, we saw Real Murcia end their season on a high, beating Grupo Dos champions Eldense. And now the rumour has been confirmed. Like you said, with Sergio Aguirre, it might look a bit better from next season. And then the other sort of results we've got. Well, that is all the results.
All happening at the same time. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Well, just to confirm then how Grupo Dos ended, it is obviously Eldense are our champions. We've got confirmed playoff contenders of Sabadell, Atletico Madrileño, Villarreal B, and Europa. I think that Atletico Madrileño result, wasn't it? They won 3-1 or something like that. And I think the other one was Sevilla Atletico drew 1-1 with Alcacon, but they had both had nothing to play for.
Yeah.
Confirmed relegation spots, as we just mentioned, Sevilla Atletico, they were gone ages ago. Atletico Thanyo Kenyo too, so all those Cadiz B players can return from whence they came. Marbella, absolutely crap season to them. That is a massive step back considering that the players that they signed. However, we do hope that Gabri will be back in Primera RF next season, and as soon as we find out where he's going to go, we will be there. Tarazona, obviously, very, very sad as well. I think for them it's just a lack of firepower. They've been punching well above their weight, and I think again the way that the leagues were split this year, and this is always going to be important and a very big thing about Primera F. The fact that they got put into Grupo Dos and not Grupo Uno, I think was a massive thing against them this season. All that travelling, the furthest amount of travelling that any team had to do in this division, was absolutely crazy. And obviously then Betis Deportivo, as you said, Tom, is the last side. So that means we've got 4 playoff games to contend with, starting this Friday in the capital. As things stand, like I say, I have to keep caveating this just in case we have like a Spygate situation where a team is suddenly thrust back into the playoffs unexpectedly. But I suppose the first thing I'll say about this one, it's Real Madrid Castilla against Sabadell. I actually quite feel for Sabadell here because not only are they playing both of their playoff games on a Friday evening, late at night as well, let's not forget. Going away to Castilla is never a nice thing to do because basically Real Madrid Castilla don't really allow away fans. And if they do, they're going to charge you through the nose to watch it. This is the tie that nobody wanted, really, did they?
Yeah, and even if they did allow away fans in, I think it'd only be a couple of hundred, really, which definitely would not be enough for Sabadell, because I'm sure many of them would like to be there. Yeah, I do fear for Sabadell, as, like you said, with the kickoff times and Castilla being a filial side, might get a few of the youngsters back from the first team to play in this match. And really, Sabadell, they haven't really had a great sort of year, like calendar year. They've sort of put their foot off the gas and obviously missing out on the title. But it was good that they managed to get a away day win on the last day of the season, which hopefully puts them in good stead for this one.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very interesting for Ferran Costa to really rally his side here, and I think he's got to use the psychological element of what he can do against Real Madrid Castilla here to say, these are going, everyone's going to want us to win basically because no one wants to see Real Madrid Castilla get promoted, least of all ourselves. And I think, the thing we've got to remember with Sabadell as well is that they only came up from the Segunda Ref last season. This could be a double bounce through, for a fantastic club. We've got some really good players. So if they can just squeeze that extra bit of energy out of them to get through these next potentially 4 matches and, obviously get the victory and the reward of going up to the Spanish government, that's going to be incredible. I do feel here that there are obviously a few players that Alvaro Arbeloa took with him to the first team. Obviously, you look at the way he tried to bleed them into the squad towards the end of the season. Now that's over, as we've mentioned, you would likely see them put back into this team. Is that a fair advantage? And I don't think Real Madrid Castilla are going to be alone in this. I think obviously Villarreal Bay are known for this. I think obviously there's a few faces that will drop, from the Vigo side into the Celta Fortuna side. Probably, possibly, maybe to a lesser extent, the same for Atletico Madrileño. It's a bit crap that this can happen, isn't it? There should be a hard line in the sand, shouldn't there?
Yeah, say like once you get promoted to the first team, you should not be allowed to just drop back down. It just makes the competition unfair because like some weeks teams have played a really strong, say, filial side, and then the next team the following week may have played a weak filial side, and it sort of really makes it unfair, not just on the teams in the playoffs, but also the teams that might have missed out because they didn't get the correct result against these filial sides.
No, absolutely. And I think the thing we've got to hold on hope here as well is that, as much as Real Madrid Castilla are, the B team to Los Blancos, and they might have a few returning players, they actually haven't had the season that they threatened to have. With some of the players that they recruited in the summer, we were more worried about them maybe finishing at a sort of same level as their city rivals, Atleti, or similar to Celta Fortuna, but they kind of snuck in there at the last minute, been very inconsistent with their form. So it'd be interesting to see whether Sabadell can, at least limit them away from home, and then obviously the return leg next Friday, whether they can maybe grab a win at the Nova Croia Alta. One of the prize packages, Tom, for these playoffs is Ponferradina because, again, we look at what happened at the turn of the year. Obviously, new manager comes in, Mehdi Nafti, who's obviously had success elsewhere with the likes of Levante and such. He came in, he does crap in his first 7 games. I don't think he gets one win at all. I think merely a point, and obviously gets knocked out of the Copa del Rey by Racing Santander. Talk about turning ships around. The fact that we're talking about Ponfe in the playoffs here, it's a testament to the brilliant job he's done in this, second half of the season and, the last few months in 2026.
So you've also got to praise the board of Ponfe because they allowed him to get to January, and he got to sort of whittle down that squad and also got a few of his own players in. And yeah, they looked at the sort of Tenerife formula and go, right, we're not going to be amazing, but we'll be good defensively and get the 1 or 2-0 wins.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting for them, and I like how you use the sort of a analogy with Tenerife as well, where they do the routine stuff correctly, don't they? They're well drilled. They know how to play football. They are defensively solid, and they'll catch you, and they'll score plenty of goals. Kind of like the opposite to Atletico Madrileño, to be fair, because as much as they are a filial, they have been quite fun to watch this season, and they've got some really, really talented, exciting players in there. So this is going to be a bit of a yin and yang game, really, isn't it? And again, I can't really see which way this could possibly go. Obviously, Atletico Madrileño, Fernando Torres and his team have had a pretty decent end to the season as well. They've had some very high goal scoring games recently, but El Dorolin is not an easy place to go, and I'm sure there's a lot of people in Ponferrada, that will want to see them put in a better shift of the playoffs than they did last season when they fell to, I think it was Andorra at the first leg. And again, they're a club with pedigree of getting promoted to the Spanish Segunda, and they want to be back there. They're a club that are certainly of that stature and of that size. It's not going to be an easy game to call this, is it?
Yeah, like you said, it's a sort of clash of two different styles. Really, I think Ponferradina have just got to rely on their defensive solidity, and I think they should edge this if they stop Atletico Madrileño from scoring. I think they've got a really decent chance, but the sort of ties the sort of wrong way around for me. Sort of hoping Ponferradina would be home the last game, the second leg. But we're going to have to wait and see what this one brings up for us.
Yeah, this is going to be the problem, isn't it? Especially with these sides that have the second leg away to a filial. There's nothing worse than playing a game at a training ground as it is. It really anaesthetises the tie for me, and I think that's definitely going to be the case. When Ponferradina go away to Atleti Bay in the second leg. I just hope we get to see some proper shithouse football here, Tom, to be fair. Like proper mean machine, Mike Bassett style football from Mehdi Nafti. And I hope he kicks the shit out of them. I really, really do. Because it'd be very, very funny to watch. Because again, and maybe the point to recognise here at this moment is with these 4 filial sides that we've got, competing in the playoffs, there's a very much a possibility, as little as it is at the minute, but it still is a possibility that we have all 4 progress through to the finals, which means we then get a guaranteed 2 filials going up to the Spanish Segunda next season, and none of us want to see that, do we? That would be the worst thing ever if they went and joined Real Sociedad B and we had 3 filials in the Spanish Segunda next season.
Yeah, and also going back to hopefully Ponferradina kicking the shit out of Atletico Madrileño. Atletico Madrileño could do the same because the amount of games that I've seen them like kicking the opposition and getting stupid red cards is ridiculous. So we could be in for a card fest.
Oh yes, yeah, definitely want to bet on the spread there, don't you? But yeah, fingers crossed. The other one that I really want to talk about is obviously Europa against Celta Fortuna, and that's going to be such an interesting matchup as well. And as much as we don't like filials on this podcast, if I had to pick one that I don't actually mind, it is Celta Fortuna. They do stick to sort of like the principle and the philosophy of growing their own cantera. The Cantera Celeste is, basically everyone coming through, promoting Galician football. They get to play a lot of the games at the Abanca Baledos as well. So no doubt that the second leg against this for Celta Fortuna will be at the bigger stadium. There'll probably be a lot of people in attendance as well to help them push over the line. That's going to be a big ask for Europa here, who I think, as we've noted, have been okay in this second half of the season, but playing away from New Sardinia hasn't really helped them. And they've kind of just limped across the line from where they were. However, as a story, if Europa can get promoted, Tom, this is going to be like fantastic news, isn't it?
Yeah, and especially as they're going to be returning to New Sardinia next season. So they left New Sardinia as a Primera RFEF club and could potentially be a Segunda club going back, which is amazing. It's an amazing story. I just worry about them just getting a little bit. They seem to sort of run out of steam in some games. They don't have the sort of squad depth that maybe Celta Fortuna may have, because obviously their filial side, they have all sorts of talented young players, and Celta Fortuna are a pretty decent side, to be honest, to watch. And yeah, and also going back to how good their academy is, like even the Celta Fortuna manager has been linked with, I think, the Real Oviedo job. So
It has,
shows
yeah,
how
yeah.
well they've done this season.
Yeah, I went to the playoff semi-final that Celta Fortuna played against Malaga two seasons ago, and I know they missed out last season, but they've come back strong again this season. They are a team that plays in a very, very interesting way, very attacking, very fluid football. And I think, like I say, what Europa probably need to be mindful of here, and what they haven't been necessarily mindful of this season, is just making sure they don't get caught out on the break so much. They're a great team going forward, which is why you've got obviously Jordi Cano with the best part of 20, 23, 24 goals this season, and plenty of assists as well. If they can obviously get that out of him, get the goals that they need out of the likes of Cano and others, they just need to watch their six and basically stay resolute at the back. That's the Achilles heel for me, because at any given moment, Celta Fortuna can cut through teams like a knife through butter, and they'll go for them on this one. I feel, especially in that second leg in the big stadium as well. A side who have been in the Spanish Segunda recently, and to be honest, Tom, I did not see them finishing in the playoffs this season. Villarreal Bay, who again, we don't like them. They play at a tiny little training ground. They don't do what Celta Fortuna do necessarily by really promoting from the local vicinity. They buy players in like they did with Alex Rubio at the beginning of the season for €1 million and then sold him on to Albacete in January. I'd really like to see Zamora, and I think Zamora are the only club here that I'm confident will get a result against one of these filials, that will get through to the finals and be sort of like at least one bastion of potential for getting into the Spanish Segunda. And Oscar Cano has obviously done a fantastic job since he's come in. He's already basically been asked, regardless of where we finish, if we don't get through the playoffs, we'd like you to stay for another season. I think he's obviously going to be thinking about that, going into these games. How big of an opportunity is this for Zamora? Because I think out of the 3 or 4 sides we're talking about here, Villarreal Bay are the ones that have got the soft underbelly, haven't they?
Yeah, they've really sort of gone under the radar this season. Really, they haven't really been impressive. They haven't caught my eye certainly. Whereas Zamora, yeah, I think they've got to be the favourites in this tie, especially they're going to be home in the second leg.
Mm.
So all they need to do is just be sort of similar to Europa. Be careful on their six because Villarreal they can counter attack and punish you. But yeah, I think Zamora's experience and quality will see them through this time.
I think that's a big thing for Zamora as well, isn't it? When we spoke in the summer about, the squad building that they had, obviously they brought in a Slava from Merida, but he moved on to Ibiza in January. But, you've got Carbonell, Kike Marquez, you've got obviously Chris Ramos as well, who's been there for donkey's years. They've got some real pedigree, but some real experience as well, which is something that Villarreal Bay don't have. Like I say, unlike this, the players that we see in, particularly Atletico Madrileño and Salta Fortuna, they don't seem to have that kind of oomph about them. Now, I might get proved completely wrong on this, and they might go through and be absolutely brilliant, but I just can't see how they would break down Zamora, who, don't get me wrong, the last couple of games they've been on a bit of a blip, but obviously ever since they qualified for the playoffs, they could afford to take the foot off the pedal a little bit. But I think they're going to come back into the playoffs here with real vigour and really look to punish anyone that they can get a hold of here, in my personal opinion. And again, I reiterate, I think really, as much as Villarreal Bay finished higher than Europa, I don't think Villarreal Bay are as good as Europa overall. And I think they're the weak ankle here for Zamora to chew on.
Yeah, I totally agree. And say Zamora in the last game, their 1-0 defeat against Ernest Getcho, they played a much rotated side. So they've rested the likes of Kike Marquez, Lasada, and even Soberon, the keeper. So hopefully those sort of players will be fresh and raring to go.
Yes, absolutely, and I'm sure you'll be cheering them on in your. It wasn't just one Zamora shirt you treated yourself to, was it, Tom? I believe you had multiple arrive in the post. Was it 3 or 2?
Yeah, I couldn't decide, so I got all three.
As you should, as you should. But
And just a
yeah,
warning: if anyone's hoping to get one, definitely size up. Maybe once, maybe probably twice as well. Because I
oh,
normally like a sort of large, medium. I've had to get like XL to XL.
oh wow, oh well. That I may stay off getting a Zamora shirt then because I'm on a health kick. I did a 5K this morning, Tom. I'm sure you'll be pleased to hear.
Oh, well done.
But I think sometimes whenever I put my Primera F shirts on, they do make me feel a bit bigger than I should be. Let's put it that way. But I'll leave that at there. Um, we're very excited for these playoffs. If you want to keep up to date with all the news, and obviously with this underlying story of whether Pontevedra might get back into the playoffs, I don't think it's going to happen, but whether they will, we'll keep you up to date with that over on our social medias, as well as other results from this weekend's first legs. We'll keep you up to date with all the promotions from Segunda Ref next season as those finals take place next Saturday too. But I'll say thank you very much, Tom, for joining me once again for the last time this season in the regular season to talk about El Podo and all things Primera Federación.
So sure to be back for these playoff games, and I can't wait to talk about them.
Absolutely. And we'll say thank you to you guys once again at home. It's been an absolutely brilliant season, and your support of this podcast has been a key part of that in keeping us going every single week. This is one of the best third tiers in European football that you will find. So stick with us. We've still got 8 more games to go, and then we'll decide who is getting promoted to the Spanish Segunda next season. And yeah, we'll catch you next time. Thank you very much. Hasta luego.